We were
slash
just,
ever.
yeah, just before we went on, we were just commenting on, this wonderful work that we did together, and then you were off living your life, and I was off living mine, and
Yep.
and this is really the first, really meaningful opportunity we've had to reconnect again, and so I am most grateful for your willingness to come on and share some of your journey, our journey, I suppose.
Yes.
More
A
your
massive
journey
shift.
the shift, that's right. And so thank you so much for taking the time today. I'm most grateful. I know you are you got lots going on in your world, as we all do in COVID times, right?
Yeah. Well, every conversation with you is always valuable. So I'm sure I'll even take something away from today's chitty chat too.
Well, thank you for saying so. I feel the same way. I've learned, you may not realize this, but I've learned as much from you perhaps as you might have learned through our collaboration. So this is great. So maybe as a starting point, I'd like to ask, maybe if you could, whatever you're comfortable sharing is,
yeah,
there was a time when we hadn't met yet, and we certainly hadn't engaged yet. And I'm trying to imagine what the viewer and the listener might be curious to know about as they contemplate their own significant changes and challenges.
Yeah.
And so, again, whatever you're comfortable sharing, what was going on that led you to think, what I'm thinking, maybe outside support could be helpful?
You know what? It was because you came just highly recommended. So a colleague of mine just told me one day that they had been working with you through your process, and that it was just so eye-opening because they just learned so many different things about themselves. It actually came up because I told her how different she seemed, and there were some things that I just noticed about her, and she's like, "Well, actually, I've been working with this coach Murray," and and I was like, "How did you even hear about him?" She's like, "Well, a friend of mine actually told me about him." So it was this chain of people that just had highly recommended you. And I just sort of felt like very what she had said to me was that she learned what she didn't know about herself, or the things that she didn't know she didn't know. And to me, that just sounded so appealing because I felt that, well, I'm sure there's a wealth of things I don't know about myself. And like, who wouldn't want to uncover these things and see if, they can excel even more in life by seeing their blind spots. So that's how I got introduced to the concept of you. And then when we spoke, I think just hearing, you just have a voice that just sort of was like, oh, and like very, we had that first conversation, I remember, and I just felt like, okay, and like hearing sort of the things that you talked about, and just you told me the process and sort of what to expect, and sort of the way that the sessions would be formatted it was also very interesting because it wasn't go to therapy and spend a gazillion hours in this never-ending process. It was like, I have a very strategic plan that is very there's a process to it, and there's sessions that we do, and there's topics, and there's things, and you can call me anytime if you want to work things out, but we're working through a program. And to me, that was also very appealing because I think that the structure of it was also interesting for me.
Well, lucky me to have had the opportunity to get to know you better.
No, lucky me.
And how dynamic you are, and all the different moving parts that is a person's life, and the significance of those changes, and the significance of those challenges, and those opportunities, and the choices that lay before. And so thank you for that. And every time I come into a call like this, I learn things that I didn't know before that were going on, in the context of a person's life.
Right.
And so we embarked, and here we are. I have a twofold question that I hope will be helpful for those who are watching, and that is, which you just touched on. So, we may need not spend any more time there, but, what was it like moving through that process that you spoke of, you heard that was in front of you?
Well,
go there, please.
Yeah. So going in, just being like, this is a fun self-development thing, because enjoy that kind of stuff. I think that, becoming more self-aware in the process of it is very interesting. And I believe in living my best life. And part of that is trying to get better and better as a human being, whether it's as a CEO or a mom or a wife or a sister, brother, whatever it is, not brother in my case. And so that's what I was initially interested in. And then as we went through the process, I realized that like there were some things in my life that just were holding me back from living my best life. And I really felt that like I equate it to being on a dimmer switch. So if I want to be my full brightness and my goal is full brightness, I was like, on the 10% at certain times. And that it was through our conversations, but also through the very specific, through the process that you put me through. And I remember the one exercise that was like life shattering / then rebuilding to get to this, ultimately exceptional place that I'm in now, which was the perfect, what do you call it? The perfect day?
The ideal day.
The ideal day. And it sounds like such a simple thing of like, take me through your ideal day. And I don't know if I'm sharing too much about the process right now, but
no, there's no holding back on anything.
But it was to be walked through that and not say like, no, Kristen, you're glazing over this. I want to know, like, what does the light feel like in the room? What do you smell? Who's beside you? What do you like? What do you do? And then what do you do? Then what do you do? And you're just like, you build this story, and then all of a sudden it's like playing out a movie in your mind, and it's like you just want to be in that movie. And then that harsh reality of like going back to your reality and being like, I'm far away from my ideal day right now, and this is my life. I have one shot at it, and it's not acceptable, and I have to change it, and it's going to be awful to change it. Like there are some massive things that I have to do, and it's going to be painful and destructive. And sort of the idea of like, but it really came down to like, is it a slow death, or is it like a quick burn everything to the ground and start rebuilding right away type of a thing. And so that was just sort of eye-opening. And I remember too that that was kind of mid our process, I think. Mm-hmm. And then by the end of our time together, my graduation day, I was like, guess what? I'm making a giant change in my life. And then that's where we ended. You're probably like, what? Well, wonder what happened there.
Yeah, what happened? There I am. I'm left hanging. No, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
What we discover in the name of what's significant as far as what's before us. Bread of clarity, bread of courage, bread of creativity, which mm-hmm. clearly was in you and brought to the foreground of your experience, mm-hmm. and you deployed it all into our experience and certainly beyond. And mm-hmm. to say that those who are watching is that there's different things to navigate, and there may be things for you that are really significant, and there may be things that are really significant that are not blowing it up variety. What we discover along the way is yet to be seen, is yet to be seen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just when I look back at our time together, because it was a chunk, which is an interesting thing to be so connected to somebody for just like this chunk of time. But I think it was the process, because the different exercises and the way, the things that we did as like week to week were like really pushed me in a different way that I'd never even thought to think about the certain things that we spoke about. But then I think it was also in you and your sort of magicalness of being able to guide somebody to the different place. Like if I were to run the program, I don't think it would be it would nearly be the same impact as if as it was for you guiding me through the process. And I don't feel like I was there's no leading. It was I was leading it, but it was just being questioned by you on like, that's interesting. And it's like, maybe give that some more thought. Maybe, maybe write about that, maybe journal about that. And so yeah, coming in, I was just like, fun. I like meditation. I like learning and development. And then, the end of it was like, whoa, I gotta fix my life.
You in fact, as you speak, you take me back into some of our conversations, and I remember there being you were willing to be present and pause. And I remember these points in the conversation where it could be a good 30 seconds or a minute where it was just quiet. It was just quiet. We were both there, and we were both very present to what was going on. And you were processing, and this is the space. This is the safe space to process. And so
likely I was crying, because when I get choked up and cry, I actually can't speak anymore. I lose my vocal abilities.
Well, you
may not have known that I was actually
well, you may not have known that it was happening to me too. It can be emotionally charged landscape, which is good news, because we need that navigation from our emotions. And when we start to get in touch with that and be comfortable with it, then so much opens up. Yeah. So you touched on the B part a bit, and I will just ask you to maybe elaborate a bit. The question I would be asking myself if I was looking in would be, okay, well, what can I anticipate it's going to be like working with this guy? Because you just said a chunk of time. This doesn't sound like one conversation. This doesn't sound like one session. This sounds like a series of touch points. And so what can I expect? Like, how can I prepare myself for bringing someone on the outside of my life onto the inside of my life, which is a big deal. It's a big deal to do that.
Yeah.
And you and I, sorry, just before you go, you and I had no history. We did not know each other before we first talked. Yeah.
No, it got very intimate very quickly, but not in a way that felt forced or unnatural. Just I think you have an ease about you. And I tend to be quite an open person as well. But I think that you just have a gift for sort of like disarming and creating that trust. And I think too, because I'm so personally tied with another person that did it, and I work very closely with them, and knowing that you never revealed anything about them, I just felt like that I could say anything. You just have that like wall of like so even that we knew each other, like we're like very worked together for such a long time, and we're so intimate in the work world. You could I never found out anything about their process, and I know that they never found out about mine. I think it even overlapped with like when we were working together. But for me, actually, it was weird because we would set up our calls, and whether they were, I don't remember this time, whether they were a week apart or like 2 weeks apart. And I would kind of just live my life. Didn't really think about, too much in between. And then we'd have our call, and it'd be like I was like just dropped into a different world, like I just like went missing for a chunk of time. I did the calls out of my car. So I would just like go in my car, sit in my car, we'd do our calls, and then I would just like come back out of it being like, whoa, like I have no idea how long we were talking. Like I went to some totally different place with you, really went deep into the topics sometimes, and then you sort of pop out again, and you're like, okay, back to my life, running around, get my Starbucks, bathing my kid, doing this, doing work, and then it's not until the next time that you meet and you talk again. So
Yeah, good. Yeah, thank you. And all the while, and this sort of leads into the after part, you graduated and you headed off, and the question I like to ask is, upon reflection, looking back now, it's been at least a couple of years now, looking back to the experience, and what role has it played? What does anything last or linger? You know, what happened in sort of general terms for you, that you could call?
Yeah. My life like completely changed in every single way it could possibly. So I don't know if that would be everybody's journey, but for me, that's what ended up coming out of it, was that I needed to make this massive change in my life, and that there was like, and I didn't even know, like it wasn't even on my radar when our first session, and it kind of slowly became like more and more clear that like, oh, maybe the root of some of this other stuff is like actually has to do with this thing. And then got to our graduation day, and that was like almost ironically like the way that it just happened. I didn't even realize, I forgot actually that we had a call because I had so much going on, and I was in a store and you had called and you were like, it's our last session. I was like, oh shit, didn't, oops. Okay, by the way, this is what's going on. I made this like big decision in my life, and like I have to do it. And so I'd say like the looking back, I don't think I would have been able to change my life. And I changed it so significantly and so dramatically, and kind of had to go through like hell, and it all got burnt down and then it all got rebuilt. And on the other side of it, I'm like, so every human being that is involved in the situation is astronomically better, like astronomically. Every party is happier, more in love with each other. Like it was the right choice, the right decision, everything. And if I hadn't done the shift with you, I don't know where I would be right now. Like I really, I would be, I don't know. I think that there'd be a lot of years of like misery and yeah, I haven't imagined if I hadn't have done it. So it's like, it's a weird thing to think about now, but it 1000% happened because of the work that we did together.
I am so inspired by your story.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. It's an amazing story, and for those,
I can't imagine any better testament. Like knowing my thing, like I cannot imagine any better testament to you and to the process of the shift than this. Like there's no, I can't. If you were to write it as a script, I like taking somebody's life who's think like just like in the depths of like misery to like utter joy and fantasticness. I don't know, it's pretty incredible.
Well, I tell, I mean, I'm thrilled, of course, because I do what I do. This is what this is what we intend, and this is what we get on with the business of co-creating. But that word is so precious here, is that's co-created. And that, whatever you have created, and I know we shared a quick email recently where you're giving me credit, and I'm saying, well, hello, like you're the protagonist, you're the star of the show, right? And so your openness, your willingness, the commitment that you demonstrated, you allowed things to deepen in you, you embrace those truths, even though they were uncomfortable truths at times, and then you made decisions and choices from that place, and it's an easy opportunity for me to say that all who come share in common significant change, challenge, and choice, and all who move through the process and look back on it have excavated and mined and cultivated what was already within them, and that is clarity, creativity, and courage. And through, and I don't know how.
I remember these words. I forgot about them, but yes, that's exactly it.
I don't remember. I don't know why they all turned out to be C words. That wasn't by design, but the fact is that we have this in us. We have the ability to transform an area or areas or all of it, if that's what we decide, if that's what we see the truth of the matter is. And I'm so grateful that you were on this call, because you're forthcoming, and you're sharing something that really matters. I mean, imagine there are so many people out there that are on a similar threshold. The subject matter may be different. It may be personal, it may be professional, it may be all of it, but they're on that threshold. And I've had so many of those thresholds in my own life where I was overwhelmed with self-doubt, if not self-criticism for having got myself into whatever mess I was in the first place.
Yeah.
And so to listen in and hear you, Kristen, and be a testament to the fact that, you know what, we have this within us, and we can, and it can be night and day. It actually can be night and day. It doesn't have to be. That doesn't mean that everybody who arrives is blowing up their life. That's not but hey, we discover what we discover, and then we source our courage, we find our clarity, and we connect with our innate creativity, and we
You know what? I totally forgot your 3 C words. And that is exactly what I got from it, was like the courage, because I think there's a part of everybody that probably, you know what you need to do. You know what you need to do, but finding the courage to do it and getting the clarity on it is like the I needed somebody to hold my hand through that. But the creativity part, because it wasn't just like, oh, you're gonna do this and then your life's gonna be like garbage. Like, think of the possibilities, like what it could be. Like, have in your mind exactly the end goal of what you want it to be. And that's where I started from in it. I had to go through, some like rebuild patch, but where I am at is the creative goal of what I wanted in the end, the one that we crafted together.
Cool. I think of the expression breakdowns for breakthroughs. And I also have the image of the rising of the phoenix kind of thing, where it may seem in some ways that there are ashes there, but we definitely have what it takes to rise above that. So thank you, Kristen. First of all,
thank you, Murray.
The other interesting thing that the listener and the viewer doesn't know about is I have never seen you before until this conversation, because everything was by phone. So
Zoom was not a thing. It's
so this
true.
And that was pre-pandemic times. It's not like it was even.
So, I know my memory of you is just like being in my car, like winter, awful outside, like being in my car talking on the phone with you. So it's so fun to actually see your face.
Yes. Well, I'm grateful to see you. I'm grateful to have this chat with you. I'm most grateful for your time today and your generosity of spirit to share forward. And I look forward to reconnecting with you over time.
Yes, 100%. Thank you.